So welcome. I'm Suzanne Carowin. I'm the CMO of Web to Market. We are the creators of this new tool called Bring.ai. And to go with this, to accompany this webinar, we have put out a short white paper so we can go a little bit more in depth with that if you're more of a reader than a listener. But in any regard, we're talking again theoretically today about why we put the tool together, and then we'll talk a little bit about the tool. But we're not doing a demo. We're not really doing a deep dive into the tool itself. If you want to do that, of course, I'm here to happy to give you a demo of it. We're very proud of it. It's also now available in the Shopify store, so just an FYI, and will soon be within the Magento marketplace as well. Lastly, we're finishing up, if you're an able commerce user, we're finishing up building it to make it available as a plugin in that platform as well. Okay, so with all that kind of housekeeping done, let's get into actually talking about search habits and kind of what's happening in the world today with search, and especially, of course, with AI. Now, most of us, I think I'd start with saying that many of us, when we think about search and our website, there's really two components we need to be really clear about, because one overshadows the other. A lot of times in the world, when we think about our website, we think about getting search traffic to get to our website. And of course, that's a super critical component, because if they're not there, if nobody gets to your website, you don't need a website, right? You don't have sales, you don't have engagement and the like. You don't have any sort of relevancy to whomever's you're trying to make an impact in the world. Having said that, so much attention gets put onto driving traffic to your website, whether that's through paid advertising, through Google Ads, through paid keyword search, etc. So much of the world is focused in on that, and especially that piece of it, which is now called either answer engine optimization, or being able to get it from the right geographical spots, that sometimes we forget about what happens to the user when they actually get to the site. And so our tool, and we're going to talk about today, is actually focused in on what happens when the person gets to the site. And for many of us over the last, with the economy changing, et cetera, there tends to be an overemphasis in my marketing career. There's an overemphasis on constant acquisition, new, and maybe not as much focus in on retention. Depends what industry you're in, but that can often be the case. And so there's this never-ending, get new customer, which is great, which of course you always need to have that. But if it can also lead to a tremendous amount of churn. And again, it takes at least 2 times the effort and resources to gain a new customer or client than it is to retain them. So once you've gotten that hard-won trust and earned that trust and you have the relationship, you absolutely want to be able to keep them and then do a better job of studying them and understanding them, because ideally we're trying to get in front of them and to understand intent, right? If we understand what they're thinking and they need before they articulate it, then we can actually maybe provide something or get some new ideas as to what they might want. For example, nobody knew they needed the iPad before the iPad came out, right? But Apple created this product and then created the demand for it. But they did it by studying all these people and saying to themselves, how can we make something better that would actually solve the problems? And then they created that. So again, hopefully within your organization, you have some amount of time they can ever set aside from just tactical, this is business as usual, to set aside some amount of time to say, hey, do we really understand one, where the market's going, 2, the changes in our users, right? 3, what people are really asking for and how we fit into that equation, right? And that is, again, I think mid-year, where we are right now in the year, is a good time to start asking that, because it's a natural inflection point to say, hey, are we on track? And again, it's about this time of year when you've been catching up with everything all year, and you do have to stop and say, times have changed, right? Things that you were doing, I had somebody say to me the other day, well, we just did that. And I was like, we know that was 4 years ago. And 4 years ago in today's world is like 8 years ago. So, I know it seems like yesterday, but a lot happens in a year in today's world. So we have to really be on top of it, especially, of course, with AI. So we want to be able to, and it's overwhelming. So if you feel overwhelmed, then, welcome, because you're in the right spot. So, I mean, I do this every day and it's overwhelming. There's so much coming to market. There's so much change. It's just convergence of so many things. Massive amounts of skills are changing. Who you need on your team is changing. It's unbelievable. So let's get into this, right? So every day, here's the premise. Your customers are telling you exactly how they think. If only we could kind of gain insight into it, right? And so again, a couple other things that are out on the market that are great. So for years and years and years, all of us in the web world, in the digital marketing world, used a bunch of tools to be able to actually look at what user behavior is doing once they're on your site, right? So we would love to know who you are and track you through your whole, activity record. We would want to see where your mouse clicks go. If we can take snapshots of recording of what you're actually doing, if you have rage clicks, we would try to track as much as we can, because it gives a story about how useful our information architecture is, how useful the site is, the conversion methods for, is it the right copy? Is it the right call to action, etc. But we long have not had great clarity into the search box, right? So the search box has always been a little bit of a black box, and we haven't really known what people are doing. We've seen like the search string or the query, right? And then we've been able to get as much, maybe if we even looked at that. And it depends, again, how good your search tool is on your site. But I'd say that in my career, in working with associations, nonprofits, and small to medium businesses, very few of them have made this massive investment that is required if you're going to get some really premium search appliance, search tool built in. Most people are just using kind of what's out of the box, what comes with, name your tool, etc., and trying to do some sort of enhancement. And so it's been kind of a frustration, because again, I just maybe spent a ton of money to get people to my site, and now that I've left them to fend for themselves. So, for, oh my gosh, at this point, like what, 20, 30 years now, people have come to a website, and they really primarily, they have the only ways to navigate it are the navigation, right? And or keyword search, or they're just, again, browsing and just going from page to page, trying to figure out where you have organized things. And that's probably the key. So it's been really, the onus has been on the user to try to find where things are based on how good the keyword search is, and then how much they can guess how the organization itself has organized the content, right? Makes sense. We've all been there. So wouldn't it be great if we actually had the insight for what the actual person was searching for, and in the way that the person is thinking about searching, right? Not them trying to guess what the system is trying to do. So the whole thing here is talking about search theory, really, and the importance in your own marketing technology stack. So wouldn't it be great if we really could understand, right? If we only could read our users' thoughts, then it would be really easy to facilitate and give them what they need. But the whole idea there is every query that comes in is some sort of behavioral evidence about the intention of that user at that point in time, right? So what we would like to know is, how do we crack the code on that, right? And then the words that they're actually using. So if they're not trying to, if they're not like a librarian and know all the Boolean search terms and techniques, et cetera, and they're just like regular, normal people, wouldn't it be great? And if we could just tell them, talk to the site like you would talk to a friend who, if you called somebody on the phone and said, hey, where do I find this thing? Or I'm now talking and I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm having a dinner party on Friday night. What are ideas that I could use that would like wow them, that's like super, between $25 and $30, and like is super easy to put together in under 20 minutes. Like, wouldn't that be great? And then you're talking to somebody with subject matter expertise who kind of knows all the products, knows all the stuff, and can put it together. Or maybe you're sitting there and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm newly thinking about this topic, etc. What are like 5 books that you would recommend to me that I could start out with that are really going to make me, understand the topic, fall in love with the topic, right? Want to know more, etc. Any of those types of questions are like we would talk person to person with, right? We tend to not put that into, Google. We tend to not put that into a keyword search on a site, but we could. And if we did, we would actually be able to uncover that person's kind of the mental models. We could see the vocabulary that they use. We could see what's called the information scent, like what are they kind of actually sniffing out? What are they trying to hunt for? We could get a better gander on any of those things. And I think that's especially true in today's world when we have more generations out there than we've ever had on the planet, right? The multitude of just, you name it, the diversity abounds, et cetera. We're trying to cut across a lot of stuff, especially if you're like in a business that's, you're going to actually try to support that level of, that many, I guess, segments of the population. And even if you just have a homogeneous population, but you have multiple generations, it's tough too, because the vernacular, the words that people use have really changed over the years. And if you don't know how they're thinking and how they talk, you might completely miss out on a great opportunity to gain a client or a customer. So now we're on 3 here. The evidence is showing that we have a money leak. There's a gap there between site search and navigation. We all know it. We've known it. If you've ever looked at your stats, just even if you don't really understand them fully of what Google Analytics is telling you, one, you probably in your gut know that something seems like there's a missing piece there. It's not easy to understand. And it would be nice if we had a little bit more clarity, right? So that brings in what AI affords us, which is this shift to natural language processing, right? That AI answer engines give us this tool to actually be able to plug in, if you will, between the end user and the organization website or the product website that the organization is putting out there, to kind of be that translation component of it, right? So AI is going to be uniquely situated to do that, especially if we can train the AI only on our website and the content we want it to know, and we block out all the noise from the rest of the internet, from all these other sources. So this is kind of the reverse of what everybody's been talking about in the answer engine optimization world. So answer engine optimization world, AEO, right now everybody's talking about, hey, how do I get my site found in ChatGPT? How do I make sure my site comes up in Perplexity? All those things are key too. You need to have all that in place so you're part of the consideration set. But this is now, once you're there and people have come to your site, how do you become not the consideration set? You want to become the authority. Right? This is you staking your claim, saying we are the place for this type of information. And this is now you putting your foundational element out there to say, hey, even in this new world of AI, we are the place to come for this information. That is incredibly important, especially if you are an organization on this call where you're an association and you are the authority of this topic, or you're like a religious organization, or you're some sort of institution, or you're the publisher of books, or you're the university that's putting out the research, whatever those types of organizations, or like you think you have the market cornered on this particular product, like you were first to market, or you've got the most innovative thing. You want to have the authority set, which means that when people get to the site now, you're doing the opposite of out there in the world of being found everywhere. You want to encapsulate that user, bring them into your bubble, and keep them there, right? You want them to say, wow, I had such a great experience. I got exactly what I needed. So that stays top of mind. And the next time they go, listen, I need to go find new dinner party ideas, my top 3 in the consideration set is one of them is my site that we just had. That's the goal. Right. So this is encapsulating them, bringing them into my bubble, and seeing how I can study them and continue to engage with them, which is something, again, that AI is uniquely situated to do. That constant gamification of positive reinforcement, positive interaction back and forth, where AI is always asking you, do you want something else? Do you want us to give you ideas? Do you want recipes? Do you want to, do you want extra pieces? All those things, AI is situated to be a people pleaser and to engage us more in that topic. Okay. And so we'll talk about then how Bring AI, of course, is our solution at Web to Market about how you can actually do that and keep people there. So before we get into that, I love this. Let's talk about the theory of search as language isn't a neutral wrapper around intent. It's the fingerprint of cognition. I love that, right? It is actually telling you what the person is thinking at that moment. It is the most honest focus group you can get on a one-on-one, because it's giving you exactly what they're thinking at that point in time. So if I'm smart, I could see that somebody on Thursday night is thinking about their dinner date on Friday and they waited till the last minute, or I could say it's 2 weeks ahead of time, right? And they're like a real planner. And I'm getting I'm getting understanding of different people in my focus group or in my population of how to segment, right? The 2 week out people, the day before people. That might change my shipping options, right? That might change how I'm going to deliver product to them. But I can anticipate it because they're going to have probably that same behavioral pattern, or I can at least populate my site with that content. And then I could serve that up again. Because remember, once I'm on my site, at least what our tool does is it makes your own site your little mini, if you will, large language model. And so it's only going to train on what you want it to do. So it's going to know all of your products. It's going to know all your descriptions, all your metadata, all your PDFs, all your content that you have, your blogs, etc., that you have that you want it to be exposed to. And then, of course, AI is going to do what AI does, and it's going to be able to pull those pieces together, concatenate them, synthesize them, right, and serve them back up to the user. So, for example, in the offhand example I just gave you, let's say that now it's Thursday and this person is now asking, hey, I need top things for a dinner date to impress my mate on Friday night. Well, AI is going to be able to know it's Thursday, this is Friday, here's what's on the site. And maybe it's actually serving up to say, listen, I'm going to break down in my results set I'm going to give you are, is this for Friday tomorrow? Because here's the things that we can put in your hands right tomorrow from a shipping schedule versus nothing else. Or you could, whatever, here's some ideas you can do locally without anything, things you already have in the pantry, versus like, is this a Friday in the future? Here's a different way that you might want to approach it. And here's like 3 things that if you ordered today, you'd have in time, and just everybody would be amazed. So AI can do that type of stuff because it has the ability to do all of its logical capabilities in the background, right? But again, I think you get the point here is that the difference here of even looking in real time at what somebody's using from a search criteria at that point in time where we're actually time stamping it, we know their location, we know what IP address they came from, right? We know the date and time so we can understand where they are in their week, et cetera, where they are in time of day, of night. That is far more accurate than getting together a handful of people in a focus group, especially in a group, and asking them, hey, what do you think about that? Because any focus group has inherent bias because they're not in the real-time buying moment. They're also going to be swayed by the other people in the focus group. All those types of things you would have to account for. But in this case, it's just one-on-one. It's the mano a mano. It's the person and the machine, and they're talking now to the website in their own words, right? And you can actually track that entire conversation. And again, as people become, I guess I would say, as the expectation, which is rapidly changing, comes from using search boxes to be keyword into being dialogue boxes of conversation, right? That's kind of the real shift. You're going to see people's, what they're actually asking change rapidly. Right. So once they know they can talk to it like they would talk to ChatGPT, you get more and more and more insight right then. And again, most people don't go to these sites when most people are just not like going to, have tons of time in the day and they're only just browsing your website that has products and content on it. If they're just doing that, they're likely on social media, right? And then that's a different way to get them to your site. But once they get to your site, whether they've come through Instagram or TikTok or an email, or text message, whatever it is, they've gotten to your site. Now if they're going to stay, we can actually, again, study them, right? So we can really kind of understand what they're trying to do. So 3 intents hide in every query. You've got the navigational. They think they know where to go and they're just trying to find it. Like, I need directions. Like, hey, where do you have the one-page business plan on your site? Whatever. Hey, I need to know, where do I find, SKU number 54625. Informational, I'm trying to understand, compare, product A and product B. Or transactional, and they're just literally, now this is kind of, you see this in the AI world as well. And this is the promise of that agentic AI that's just going to buy for you, right? So I've given it a buy order, like, hey, when tickets to the concert go on sale, I want you to order me 4. Okay. And so it's going ahead, it's looking for this all the time, and it's going ahead and taking action. Some people that scares them. Some people are like, oh, that sounds great. But that's kind of that transactional, right then and there. It's, I'm coming in there and I already know what I want. I'm dropping it in cart and I'm out of there. That's also like the repeat purchase, right? So repeat purchase is great if you can study that, because you get a real sense of what is happening in that person's life, right? Like the best, when I teach classes and I go out and I'm teaching marketing, one of the best things ever you tell new people to marketing is that, the grocery store by far is like the best way to study any human, because whatever's coming down that grocery cart, you can understand kind of where they are in their life. You got really great insight into the, demographics, psychographics, et cetera, of what's happening in their world based on what they're buying. You get a really good sense, right, about what's happening with them. Are they a parent? Are they not? Are they dating? Are they not? Are they single? Like, what's their kind of household income level? Are they vegetarians? Are they not? I mean, there's so much you can get from just looking at somebody's store order, which is why, like, big companies like Kroger, they have so much data and so much consumer data. They sell it off, and then they've actually broken off and have their own data analytics, private company to do it. Because, everybody wants that type of data, right? If I'm selling diapers, I want to know who's out there buying formula in the grocery store, so I can go ahead and send to them, et cetera. So anyway, so 3 intents hide in every query. We've got our navigational, our informational, and our transactional. So you can kind of understand, and if I can watch them and I can intercede where it's the right place for that person, then you know what, I probably have a really good shot at creating a relationship. And again, establishing trust and being able to grow that trust, especially if each time they come back, I can actually, level up each time and be able to have them trust me that they're going to get what they wanted. So that's another thing. You have to be able to deliver, right? This is still based on honesty. And I hate to say that, but I think we got to talk about ethics a little bit more often in today's world when it comes to marketing, because we're in such a fraud-based cheating is okay world. I feel like that. I think it's important that with all these AI tools, there is so much, the ability to hoodwink and to defraud people is, it's never been so easy. So you do have to deliver, and then you really will inject. Now, that's the negative. The good part is that if you use it for good and you're actually delivering on your promise, you really can stand out and really, again, establish trust and have a far easier time gaining that loyalty and gaining the loyal buyer. But I'll just note that we'll do a future ethics and AI training in the future. Okay, so secondly, what are the words actually revealing, right? And I love this because we can actually see that, again, the vocabulary gap is a core problem. And so maybe in our world, like, we're all prim and proper, and we've got our, our cheese and wine store online or something like that. And so we are, in our world, we know it's charcuterie and it's charcuterie accompaniments, and that's how we're going to organize it. And if you walked into our beautiful, in-person store, we would have all the right categories, and maybe we have our cheeses under the French names or whatever the case might be. We know the accurate, real industry term, right? We know that it's called, again, answer engine optimization, et cetera. But you're like out there and you're not living in my world, and you're like, what the heck is that? Is it the search thing? Is it the how do I get found in ChatGPT thing? I think that's probably a really good example of that, right? Agentic AI versus, like, just it's the common, like, street way you would say something. that a user would do. But if I, in my site, am filing it in this, absolutely accurate industry way to do it, or I'm filing, let's say I'm a publisher, I'm filing under the actual author's name, or this, subdivision name, or what the actual biological science name of it is, whatever it is. But then the person who's coming in, they don't know. And this happens all the way by the way, when you get into the more scientific stuff, et cetera, or university things, the universities, the medicals, the health, they'll file things under the proper name, as if, if you were an MD, let's say, you would know what that is. It would be a common thing, wouldn't even be a question. But if I come in as a journalist, you see the mismatch. And that happens all the time between the medical scientific world and journalists, right? Or like analysts who are coming in to look at this stuff. You have a big mismatch of understanding. So again, in our example here, somebody's put it under charcuterie accompaniments, and this person's like, I need stuff for the cheese board. I don't know, my girlfriend's coming over, I want to make her a cheese board. What stuff do I put on it? Right. And that's what, if they could just use natural language, then this person would be in much better shape, not knowing that the whole word is under the category of charcuterie, right? So every unmatched query is a customer telling you precisely where your language and theirs diverge, right? And that is a real telling sign, because now I don't have to change my navigation. I can keep that perfectly the same, but I can start to understand who are the users that use navigation that way, who are the users that start to just use natural language and they put in cheese board stuff. And if I start seeing that there's more people who just put in cheese board stuff, then I know that maybe I'm trying to be too highfalutin in my language or understanding, and I've got a mismatch. And maybe what I need to do is create content to say, how do I go from cheese board stuff to like getting my snotty, vocabulary and being somebody who knows, like, can actually speak on this level. Okay. So think about that. It's like then you can actually chart a path for people to be kind of an amateur to a professional in the kind of world that you operate in and that you provide. And then that's nice too, because then they see there's a pathway. You've made it inclusive for them. You're like, okay, I can start here, and then I can always graduate to all these other things. So for example, we have one of our, excuse me, one of our big users of our Bring product is Jane's Cake and Baking Supply Company. And so they provide all the tools and equipment really for cakes and baking and cooking, right? But they go from literally starter sets to people that are semi-pro to professional. So if they only had everything organized for the professional and used all the professional terms and everything else, other people would say, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not at that level. I need to like go somewhere else. And they're like, no, we want you to come to our store and be with us on the journey as we take you from, let's say, the beginner sourdough bread maker, because that's one of their common ones. People are very intimidated by, they want to learn sourdough, but how do I do that? They're intimidated. They don't really know where to go, what to get. And they take them from that all the way until, hey, if you want to go make this bread and get licensed to sell it, we can be with you during that whole journey. Okay. And so people know that they meet them where they are, and that's part of their brand. But they can see that in kind of the search results. They can kind of pick out and say, oh, look at this. This person is probably new to sourdough. So let's go ahead and hit them up with a coupon or send them an email, or make sure that we kind of categorize them as kind of a newbie, a rookie in the sourdough bread making world. So I didn't even mean to have that nice little segue, but people follow the words that smell like their goal. So if you love the smell of baking bread, right, they're going to keep coming back to Jane's Cake and Baking, because they know that they're welcome there. And they're looking for the scent. So if they kind of get, okay, they started with sourdough and now they want to start saying, well, I've always really wanted to know how to, I don't know, make something else, right? How do I actually make cheese from scratch? Like, that would be my next thing. So then they're kind of keep going in, and they can keep kind of pulling them in, and again, engendering and having that relationship there. So same type of thing. If I can get results back in my natural language search, so let's say I put in, sourdough bread starter kit. Maybe I put that in. I'm kind of still thinking my natural language is like a keyword search. So I'm thinking logically, okay, Jane's Cake and Baking would probably have a starter kit, let's see. And all of a sudden the results that I come back with were like, we'd love to tell you about the starter kit, you know? And now it's asking you more questions like, are you looking for this or that? Or it comes back and says, here's like the top 5 things that you can, we would recommend. And then it says the extra thing. Would you like additional help? Are you looking for recipes? And then I'm like, well, that's quite nice. Yes, I want to. Yes, I do. Like, right. And then it's like, well, you know, if you're going to do sourdough, don't forget that you're going to need X, Y, and Z, right? You're going to need the fermenting starter kit. So we recommend this type of glass container for it. And you're like, wow, I had no idea. That strong scent is going to pull me forward and it's going to keep me going with that, right? So I love this too. Your customers will write your taxonomy for you if you read what they type, okay? And so he is one of the absolute architects of the IA world there. As an IA principal. So the more you can study your customers, they tell you the answer. So of all the brands I've ever done, I mean, all of them, the best brands come out from me just being immersed within that population and listening and listening and listening. And at some point, the same patterns emerge, et cetera. And you pull something from there that's going to be a unifier, that's going to be specific to that brand, that feeling, right? It's feeling. And then you say, boom, here's the brand. Here's what it sounds like. Here's what it looks like, right? Here's what glues us all together. But it always comes from the customer, right? You can't just put it on somebody else. It's got to be, it's how they feel about your product or brand, et cetera. Okay. So the evidence, right? So again, this is a usability backs up everything I'm saying. I'm not making this up. This is a Baymard Institute. This is kind of what happens, right? 70% of e-commerce searches can't return relevant results for product type synonyms. And I think if you have a regular kind of website with keyword search, you know that's the case. And even, by the way, with keyword search, when you get back the results, you still as a user, even with Google, et cetera, I mean, it's on, and they now have that AI block at the top to try to give you the synthesis and the summary of it. But it's still on you to figure out, of all the links that come back, which one's relevant to me. And then that's also now frustrating because you're like, I don't have time for that. Like now we're going to expect to have this next level AI stuff in our site. And if you don't, it's quickly coming. That's just becoming the norm. It will be by the end of the year. Believe me, with everything that's being lined up now for the holiday season, right? To go through this year's Black Friday and, you know, Halloween. Let's just start with Halloween. Let's start with back to school. With back to school and on. All of this stuff is changing rapidly, and the expectation of your site is so much higher than it ever was. So if you haven't updated your site, you haven't looked at the design, even like the look and feel of stuff now, you know, it all looks like Claude. It all looks like AI driven because it is. So that's what the top sites are. It's just a completely different ball of wax. So, all right. So 94% of mobile sites don't support search within category, though half of users try to instinctively try to do it. Okay. 15% of sites fail because they don't have regular things like return policy, known triggers for abandonment. Right. They still, I mean, it's amazing to me. I work in e-commerce, and it's amazing how many people still don't have these slick, like abandoned cart workflows set up, stuff that's like very low hanging fruit, or they just haven't looked at it in forever. They haven't looked at their confirmation emails in forever. They set it up 9 years ago and it just still has like, I don't know, a blue bar and their logo, and they haven't done any personalization. So that stuff's just, it's not going to fly anymore. The users have changed, right? The base of people have changed in their expectation. So they search Blazer, your catalog says sport coat, you've got the mismatch of language, and no products come up. Okay. So again, we're going to say that, you know, search isn't an nav feature, it's a high intent channel. And we need to start looking at it from that perspective and seeing what we can do. And again, from our perspective, we're going to talk about once you've already gotten to the site. Now, you're asking a whole different webinar series will be on driving people to the site, because we still have a lot of people who don't spend money on that, aren't really sure what to do with that, or they only do like the cookie cutter Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and that's not working for them anymore. You know, there's so many other ways to do that now. It's gotten very niche. very segmented, etc., what you can do. So we'll get to that on a different time. But this is, again, in the site. Okay, so if I can get search working for me, I'm going to have a higher conversion rate. And that's just, that shouldn't be a shocker there. And it shouldn't be a shocker that most people, 84% of companies, don't actively optimize or measure on-site search, right? So don't feel like you're alone, because I'm surprised it's that high. I would say it's more like 94%. Okay. And then, but the key thing here in red, 68% won't return after a poor site search experience. Okay. And again, when you talk about users, think about yourself. You do one more than the other. There's a natural split between people that just use keyword search religiously and those that are just browsers, right? People that are clickers on navigation, right? And if they don't get what they want, they just leave. So, you'd love to say they do it all equally, but we don't. We have our preferences. Okay, so now that we're kind of moving into that, so as people now are asking in full sentences and expecting, like I said, not a list of links, right? We have to be able to use AI, because how else would we be able to rapid fire, again, cull all that information together, organize it, structure it, and send it back in some format that makes sense. So 50% zero click is a norm, right? More than half of Google searches end without a traditional result. Less than 58%, right? Around 58% AI overviews compress attention. So people are just looking at that and making the decision. The structure is really what makes the difference now. And that's another thing. Even the way that emails are structured for AI, even the way that your content is structured, all that's changed because of AI. So we need to be up on these kinds of trends, etc. So it says the winners of this whole race anticipate the real question, they answer it early and directly, and organize it. So actually, to be honest, the user has to stop thinking and give them what they want, right? So the critical thinking then is kind of ends, and we're kind of shifting over to machine, who's again helping us to put those things back together. So again, our tool, totally putting that out there, is Bring AI. And so what we've done is we've created this extra layer, and we can either remove your keyword search and plug in Bring AI, which does a couple things, right? Or we can add it to your keyword search, but it's an additive layer that allows the people to have kind of what they're used to. But I should say, it's not a chat agent. This isn't a chat bot, because we all hate chat bots. Most of them just aren't very good, right? So this isn't a chat bot. This is just a search assistant, if you will, that sits on your site. It gets trained on your site. You have a whole admin panel that all of these things we're talking about. It's not in Google Analytics. You have an admin dashboard that shows you, here's this person, maybe identified, maybe not. And you can see exactly what they asked. You can see all of the back and forth between Bring and the person, right? And you can see whether or not it dropped a cart, it got abandoned a cart, right? You can see if they just left it, they came back. All those things are there. And then, of course, APIs allow you to pull it into your own MarTech stack so you can do further analysis. But if you want to say, how can I make sure that I'm increasing recovery from abandoned carts to increase conversion, having something where you see exactly what they search for, like I'm new to sourdough and want to learn, you see that they dropped the pan or the kit into the cart and then left, right? Now, if I have it hooked in my workflow, I can take those pieces and then pull out the right content and automatically send it to them. So it's not just like, hey, you abandon your cart. With this, I'm giving an extra overlay to say, hey, we see you're new to, sourdough. Is this a gift or is it for you? Here's 3 things you need to know, right? And when you're ready, come on back. That's much higher percentage that person's going to return and want to finish the process, but at least pique their interest and really want to come back. Okay. So the way that this is structured is that we listen, we structure, and we answer. Okay, so if you will, all the queries is that voice of the customer. And like I said, we capture all of that and we put it into the dashboard for you to see. So again, you can see the users, you can see all the time date stamp, you can see exactly what they asked, you can see the back and forth additional questions, you can see whether or not the structure of it, you see their misspellings and typos, right? So that gives you a lot of insight right there into a bunch of stuff. But you can also, again, say like, again, maybe I keep using, like, this is a great example. Maybe I keep using the word couch and they're using the word sofa, right? Maybe I have a population that doesn't use either of those words. They use a far more regional term, et cetera. And I need to be able to change that maybe based on where they are in the location. Maybe I need to do multilingual, right? And so I'm picking that up and I'm changing out the language for all the pieces that go with that to exactly where they are. So there's never a dead end kind of search result. And then again, when the answer is coming back, I'm giving that back to the user in a sense that's going to make sense for them. So in our product, you can actually structure, and we give you access to see the prompts that are coming back. So if you want it like just simple bottom line answers, very terse, not a lot of verbiage, you can do that. If you've got more of a narrative audience, that wants a much longer drawn out answer, and then also include examples or recommended products or anything like that, you can actually change the prompt to that as well. And again, over time, we'll continue to refine that on our end as well. But that allows you to put all that in there. And again, I can glean all sorts of insights from that data that I'm collecting. And so from there, you can see every query becomes this first party intent signal. So I can see all these things and we can put this in everything under the sun, right? So if we can understand the database, but right now it's, like I said, it's working for all of these products up there, and it allows you to plug in, and then with its APIs, I can now pull it into whatever, like maybe you're using Grafana as your overall dashboard, maybe you're pulling into Power BI, maybe you want to pull it into your own CRM, maybe you want to put it in Salesforce, maybe you want to trigger it, again, like I was saying, my example of the abandoned cart, triggering from Klaviyo, or going into some other marketing automation, you're going into HubSpot. Whatever those types of things are, you can now pull that out and be able to use it as part of its activity record. Okay, so imagine if you're a HubSpot user, imagine you're in HubSpot and I'm seeing my full activity flow, and I can now see it's inserted here to say, here's what it says, it's coming from Bring AI, and this person's asking, what are the top 3 things I should do to become certified in the next 6 months? Like, give me my own learning plan. And I see that come in, right? And then I can have it triggered to do all these other things for my prospecting and scaling them, or scoring them rather. All these types of things I can pull together, all because I have Bring AI, and because I've got that extra level of know-how. So again, bottom line with that is that you don't just know what was searched, you understand who searched it, right, and why, and then I'm getting to know that person. If you don't think that helps out on your persona building, right, and being able to continue to enhance your personas. Now, somebody did ask me the other day, it was an excellent question, such a good question. So when I was teaching a class and they said, hey, Suzanne, that sounds great, but it sounds like every time now I get all this information and I can start to understand like these kind of clusters or subclusters, if you will, that seems like more and more segments that I have to attend to and understand. And I said, yes, you're absolutely right. And that's a good problem to have, right? That's the problem we want to have. Because again, if we can really get into finite kind of little buckets, well, then again, our good friend AI is probably what's going to help us to actually be able to do that level of personalization, right? But that's the promise. That's the good side of AI, and the promise of it understanding us and being able to serve up, personalized, you name it, that's actually customized to me and my preferences and all the things that work for me. Like I said, does that create another whole problem with a strong need for ethics and everything? Absolutely, right? But I think, if that needs to come part and parcel with it. It's a little bit lagging, but I think for most of you on the call today, I'm just going to assume that we all have good intentions for doing this. Most of us just really want to get our organizations' sites to show up right, and we like to see our organizations do well and prosper, because we probably have jobs from them, et cetera. And a lot of us really care about the cause. So we want to be able to do those things. So I'll kind of end on that note, but that's what our product does bring. It handles all these things we just talked about. Understanding that intent, not keyword. It's super easy to install. It's not a long project. It's like a couple hour project at most, right? It gives you those answers back. You can then tie it into all your APIs, et cetera, and it allows you to really understand. And one other thing I'd say is Tom does this. Tom is the owner of Jane's Cake and Baking. One thing we've been able to also understand, I didn't mention this, it can really kind of elucidate what the gaps are in your product line. So for example, he's got Jane's Cake and Baking Supply. So one, a lot of people come and think he's an actual bakery, like you can come to his store and buy, the end product. And he's like, no, I'm the tools to make the end product. So then people need to understand, okay, this is for people that want to come in and buy the pans, the rolling pins, the cookie cutters, right? All the things you do for decoration, the sprinkles, like he's got the market cornered on sprinkles, whatever. So he has to be very upfront in understanding that. So when people are querying things, he can understand, okay, I need to make sure that they understand what it is that we sell and where we fit in the market. Secondly, people came in and they started looking for, let's say, decanters for wine, because they're thinking cooking and baking, and that's like they're thinking about setting their table, they're thinking about those types of things. And so he starts saying, oh, they keep looking for, let's say, wine decanters. And he's like, wow, I don't have any wine decanters. And so he starts saying to himself, should I carry wine decanters, right? Is that something that we should have? Right, then he started thinking, well, I don't know. I mean, how often, like maybe I should do wedding registries or gift registries, right? Because we do have really nice Nordic ware pans and things like that, and pieces. He's like, I don't have small appliances, but maybe we should do this. So just by seeing what people are actually thinking that he should sell, he can start to ask himself, is this a business line that I want to open up? Am I seeing demand for it? If I had it, would these people have either walked in my store or bought it online, right? And that's what he's always trying to understand too. And if he starts seeing, and then I'll also say, people start asking all these different questions. Like they were like, hey, what about tarts? What about tarts? What about tart pans? What about trifle pans? What about whatever? And he starts realizing what they're asking is, oh, they're looking for ideas for summer, lunches, brunches, banquets, right? Like desserts that they can bring. So he came out with made sure that in his merchandising, he started pushing nothing but, berry tarts and all the things that kind of come with summer, and making sure that, again, we started changing what's actually on the hero image and the site pages. And we started pushing National Berry Munch. Like today, for example, is National Peach Ice Cream Day. He sells a lot of ice cream scoopers. So, pushing all that together, now people are like, well, that's nice. I didn't know today was National Peach Ice Cream Day. And then they're like, the ice cream sounds good. And then they start thinking, do I have a scooper? And then they're like, wow, I had no idea that these types of scoopers now existed, right? And until you put those things in front of people, and but you can see what he's doing. He's now having this interactive relationship, which, by the way, is just the same way that he actually does this in person. Like a lot of times I'm on the phone with him and we're troubleshooting something, and he's a unified commerce Shopify store. And so we might be on the phone and he'll put me on hold because there's a customer at the counter and I hear their entire banter back and forth. So he is an educator. He's getting all their information very quickly. He's giving them ideas, right? He's just rattling off all this knowledge. So the key is, how do we take that and put it into the site in much the same way so that the people have the same kind of experience, whether they're there in person with him in Brentwood, Tennessee, or they're over in California, right? Or they're up in Topeka, Kansas, wherever the case might be. That feeling, that idea there is what he's trying to convey. And so he's using Bring to just become a much smarter business owner, right? And a much smarter marketer and merchandiser. So I'll end with those couple of examples because those are real life examples. And again, if you want to try Bring for yourself and test it out, go to www.janescakeandbakingsupply.com. Spell out the word and, janescakeandbakingsupply.com, and you can try that. And again, I am always more than happy to showcase our jewel of a little product here. So just give me a call or book an appointment and I'll be happy to do so. So with that, I wish everybody a very safe and happy weekend, and we will see you on our next webinar. And again, remember, I do a lot of these based on what people are interested in learning. So don't be a stranger. Either drop a question or a topic to info@web2market.com. That's web, the number 2, market.com. Or you can get me directly on LinkedIn or at my own email. Thanks very much. Take care. So